Hello, Professor Pete. This is week 3 of animation, and this week we're going to look at character design. This is really fun for me. I love talking about characters. I love trying to imagine where this character is from, what kind of world they live in, maybe different personality traits that character has through visual communication. So we're going to have a brief look at the history, like super brief. We'll have a look at some I think are the design basics, the core of what makes interesting designs. We'll look at some role designs, tiny bit of personal work, color psychology. We'll try to get through this all in 10 minutes. Let's go. Growing up, Three Stooges was really big in my life, especially because of my dad. It's a very, very old TV show. A lot of these references will come from the US. But you can see just from these 3 characters who the alpha is, who's the leader of the group, who is the goofy one, who is the semi-goofy, just from not only the poses, which I'll hint at throughout this lecture, and their facial expressions, but their design. The guy in the middle is wearing a nice vest. The 2 characters on the left and right are wearing more like lab coats that are a little messy. And you can tell by their hair, too. They're all kind of goofy in terms of their hair, but the one in the middle seems to be the most professional, we'll say, than the other 2. We'll have a look at Superman, okay? Not only is the pose really bold, but you see the muscles, so you can tell very quickly that this character is strong, serious, pretty cool. The cape, the colors really help make this character patriotic in that sense, especially to the Americans. Moving forward, after 1932 and 1925, Mickey's friends, and I like to show the comparison. Might as well show the comparison now, but there's Mickey Mouse. You can see the proportions are a little bit different than what we are used to now. Bigger ears, there's a little bit of a eyebrow line for the eyes, and the shoes, I think, are a little bit bigger, and the arms are a little less lanky. So just to look at an example of the current version, you can see how much the characters changed over time. You can see that the shoes have also become simplified. And this is going to be a common thread you'll notice throughout this lecture is simplification of the character. 1937 is really when we get design with psychology in mind. So the characters are designed in a way that we can quickly gather their personality based on their design. So again, I've talked about this too throughout, is the use of props. So with the Doc, okay, not to say all smart people are going to be wearing sunglasses, not to say all smart people are going to be wearing glasses, but he is wearing glasses, whereas Dopey, okay, not to say that loose clothing would suggest your IQ, but Dopey has big ears, kind of like an elephant, which elephants are really smart. But anyways, you can see that Dopey is a little bit more youthful, and because of that, they tend to be a little more naive. You can see Grumpy too with the sharp eyebrows. Yeah, he's grumpy. So again, these characters are designed with their personality in mind, and this is the first time. It's strange to say that. Not first time, 1937. Moving forward, I love mechs. So here's Tetsujin. Again, mechs, you think in Japan at least, were invented a long time ago, but they were not. It wasn't until the late 60s, after World War II, and Japan was trying to figure things out, that they were able to bring back entertainment. And the way that they had to cope with the loss in the war was to have these wonderful mechs save the planet. And so here's an example of Tetsujin. Funny enough, you can go to Kobe, Japan. I went to Kobe, Japan to see the mech. It was pretty cool. But notice the stance has changed. They've modernized it. After you know a little bit more about animation, they're able to play with proportions and play with color and the pose to make the pose look a little bit more confident and heroic compared to the manga that you just saw, where Tetsujin looks really stiff. Just to combine Mario and Sonic in the same slide, 1981 on the left, 1991 on the right. You can see the colors are pretty consistent, right? Red, white, and blue. But you can see, too, that the proportions are also quite playful. Mario looks like a kind of a chubby, 4-year-old. Sonic on the right looks like a very, very angry, spiky creature. If you look at hedgehogs, you don't usually think of Sonic as a hedgehog. Hedgehogs are really cute, little spiky little creatures. They do not look as intense as the right. Happy on the left, maybe angry on the right. Sonic was built for speed, and you can tell by the shoes. Shoes are red. you got speed. So moving forward, after looking at the history of design, you can see how design has changed so much that we have a chance to look at the unique silhouettes of basics. Now, the design, is much more memorable when we have a unique silhouette. And so these are the 5 examples I'm going to show you. I mean, Sonic is another one. So if we look at Moana, Maui on the right, okay, look at that silhouette. Very round, very memorable. Yes, very unique. And I think because of those cool tattoos, really makes for an interesting character design. Also, notice how big his chin is and how pudgy. Like all the features are stuck in the middle of that circular head of his. Here we got SpongeBob. SpongeBob is, again, interesting silhouette because he's more or less just a sponge, a rectangle. Notice the colors too. Yellow is a common color that we see also in The Simpsons, but nonetheless, with a very interesting silhouette, very boxy and very lanky arms. I mentioned it just briefly earlier, but interesting silhouette with the family of 5. Star hair, we have the afro with Maggie, also with the star hair. We have Bart, okay, very, very unique set of hairlines for all 5 of these characters. Makes it very memorable. Moving on with more Japanese influence, Pikachu. Okay, you got that really interesting tail like a lightning bolt, and then 2 very sharp ears, yellow character as well. Very recognizable, memorable, and unique. And that silhouette makes it very playful. So again, I'll continue talking about silhouette. And in this case, you see proportions too. The head size. The head is the same size as the body. So very cute, playful. Finally, Despicable Me, also yellow. I don't know why I keep bringing this up. But that silhouette looks like a pill, right? And then that funny face. Like he's just not very, very impartial with the eyelid being halfway up there and the frown. It's kind of a funny character to look at, and you just want to laugh. And so there is that. All right, next up is to make sure the character is simple. And I think this video is becoming already so long, but you don't want to go more than 3 colors just from all the examples I showed you. First off, when we're talking about color, but let's have a look at some of these simple characters. Here's Mike from Monsters, Inc. All right, instead of having 2 eyes, you've got 1 eye. Bam, there you go. Very simple. Notice too, there's not a lot of texture to this character, even though the character is 3D animated for the film. Here's Hello Kitty, also very simple. Notice the basic shapes for the feet, the arm, also the head, very simple. Not a lot of detail. Makes it very easy to take in. Here's kind of a funny picture. I mean, Japanese, they've mastered design, although in this case you have a mascot. Just like a marshmallow of a character, just put a couple eyes and a mouth, very simple, and then put the temple. In this case, it's a castle in Himeji, and you've got yourself a mascot. And again, very playful and fun. And just to show you some other examples, Hiroshi Yoshi, I worked with him on a Touch Free. You can find that on YouTube. And just to show you some of his designs, very simple. All right, not a lot of texture, not a lot of line. The characters, are very cute. In that sense, is one of the characters that showed up in the film and some of these other ones. But you can see that, these characters are very simple, very happy and playful, very similar to Hello Kitty. This one is, I think, what I consider to be a mashup, a mashup between a duck and on the top it could be, a dinosaur. We're seeing more and more of this mashup between 2 different types of things. You combine them. And then this one too, also very cute because of the proportions, and I'll talk about that again. So here we have images of photographs of the giraffe and the zebra. Then we see stylized versions of the same thing. Notice how simple, the cartoon versions are of their real counterparts, and that's how you should think. All right, think in simple ways, and the characters will be much easier to digest, and much easier to follow, and much easier to produce. That's a big thing, and I think this illustrates it the best. I always like to show this comparison because I'm a big Transformers fan. mostly because of the aesthetic, not so much because of the story. But here we have opposites, where we have Michael Bay's version, and then we have the cartoon 80s version. And notice how much Michael Bay tried to modernize it, but also at the same time made it very complicated and very complex, versus the much simpler designs from the cartoon shows. So you can see Megatron on the very top row, and then you see Optimus Prime on the lower row. It's supposed to be the same character, but you can see how much more complicated and much more difficult it is to follow the movie version than the TV version. So now looking at playful proportions, I always like to show Michelangelo's, human proportions. But first, let's look at Smurfs, the playful proportions. Again, this is probably taking some of it from Mickey Mouse with the big feet, small torso, huge heads. Here's Da Vinci's proportions, and you can see it's based on math, more or less, just to summarize things. And the body, the whole character is 8.5 heads tall, and you can see the width is of the arm span is based on a circle and is roughly 4 heads wide on each side in terms of wingspan. To see how that works for us, here's another example where we have a 1-year-old in terms of proportions. A 1-year-old is about 3 heads tall, and as they get older, up to an adult, you become 8.5 heads for your entire body. I don't know, like 6%, 8.5. No, that's not right. So it's roughly about 12% by the time you get there. And the first year, since it's 25, is more like 33%. But you can still see how the head gets smaller because the body gets bigger over time. And so here's another fun example. It's a baby that stands, but here's Stewie, right? Head of a football, again, funny silhouette for the head shape. And then you have the fact that his head is so big, making for very, very fun proportions, right? It's very stylized also, and very simple, as I said. 3 colors minus the skin tone, and you've got a pretty solid formula for a good character. I don't want to make this video much longer, but in terms of context, these are things you want to think about in terms of props. So we have Disney's Aladdin. He's a poor thief, right? Could tell a very good story. Nintendo, which is in Japan, has Mario, the New York City plumber. You got Shrek the Ogre from DreamWorks, another Hollywood example. He lives a simple life out in the forest. Spider-Man is just a nerdy kid living in the city. And then in Doraemon, Nobi the schoolboy is just not good at anything. So in terms of context, there is a backstory. Now these are things that you think later, but hopefully should aid in the design of your character so that way the character matches the story. These are, again, some things that you want to make sure you check off. This is more complicated stuff, but you want to think about, all right, the design of the character. Does it help or confuse the story? Does it heighten the audience's emotion? One funny example I like to show is the Kung Fu Panda versus Baby Panda. All right, so here's the design, okay? We have Kung Fu Panda on the left, and then we have just this cute, I don't know what this thing is on the right, but the use of proportions makes the one on the right very cute and playful. You really want to watch and see how this character develops in their own story, right? And so how, again, can you design the character so that way the audience, stays interested in it? Is very important. What is the role of the character? Is the character a hero or villain? These are things you want to ask yourself as you're designing the characters. In The Lion King, for example, very majestic lion here, right? Notice too the expression on their faces. This is also very important in terms to explain the mental state of that character. Look at the lion over here, right? A little bit darker in color, but look at the facial expression and the dark shadows around their eyes. And the frown, that just gives it away, that the character is probably not on your side. So then you got to think, where's the character from? Again, this is getting deeper, but as you can see in Nairobi in Kenya, Lion King, that's their world. Does the character interact with anyone? This is also very important. You want to make sure the characters don't match and look exactly the same. You have in Toy Story, okay, you have Woody and then you got Buzz. They're very different. One is a little bit more round and white. The other one is very lanky and a little bit more yellow, cowboy versus astronaut. Very different worlds. And then there's a couple other questions you want to ask. Props can always be really helpful. And explaining your character to the audience very quickly. Color psychology, very important. Red, green, all these colors have meaning. You saw a ton of yellow skinned characters. You always want to pick no more than 2 or 3 colors. Hellboy, all right. The character Hellboy is red. I don't know why. It's kind of hot skin, like lava. The Incredible Hulk is green. Another example is Avatar. The characters are blue. And you saw earlier, Simpsons are yellow. So there you have it. I just went and explained to you character design in a nutshell. You do want to make sure you follow the design basics. You want to make sure that it's a unique silhouette, right? In that sense, make sure the character is simple. You don't want to overload the audience with all these tiny details. It makes it very confusing to follow. And thirdly, you want to make sure the proportions are playful. Maybe it's a big head, maybe it's a tiny head, maybe it's huge arms, huge feet. Think about how those kind of things can complement to really make your character appealing and interesting for the audience to watch. So, that was a long video. I tried to make it short. Anyways, Professor Pete out. We'll see you in the next one. In the meantime, have fun. Take care.